The House of Representatives has called on the federal government to purchase natural gas-powered mass transit buses as palliative measures to mitigate the effect of the removal of petrol subsidy on the transportation sector. The House made the call at plenary session yesterday, Thursday, June the 1st, following the adoption of a report of an ad hoc committee that investigated the petrol product subsidy regime in Nigeria from 2013 to 2022. The report was considered by the Committee of the Whole and the recommendation proposed adopted. It said that the federal government should rightly remove subsidy on all petroleum products. The House resolved, adding that palliative measures should be provided, including the purchase of CNG vehicles, and also the House recommended that some immediate design measures and palliatives to cushion the effect of the subsidy removal for Nigerians effective from this year 2022 through the provision and procurement of not just buses but other means of palliative. The government should also introduce intermodal regional and national transport system to ease mass movement of people across the country. The report read in part. But the big question or the big story today is, why was such measures not thought out first before the removal of the subsidy? And what are other measures that should be put in place? Well, these and more is what this edition of the big story is all about, as we talk about the subsidy removal and a call for palliatives for Nigerians. And that's what we're having as a major discourse today, judging with that very call from no other about the House of Representatives just yesterday during plenary, that measures to help cushion the effect on Nigerians on the removal of the subsidy should be thought out and should be also introduced. But anyway, I need to introduce him here, and he's joining us to also help look at these measures, or what other measures we need to look at. And I'm talking about no other person but Comrade Nofie Francis Onos. And good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning and welcome to the show.
Well, anyway, the House of Representatives took the lead in the call for palliative yesterday when they requested for the federal government to purchase natural gas-powered mass transit buses in a bid to help deal with the issues. So I rather want us to start there first. Now, do you see these measure as really going to help out to ease the stress and problem that might certainly meet Nigerians in the coming days? Would natural gas buses do the magic?
Oh, well, ordinarily, I will say yes. But one of the things that always baffle me about the Nigerian nation is this.
Yes.
We always talk about cushioning effect. Cushioning effect. It's like putting the cart before the horse. Why not do this before the removal? That is the problem. You know, sometime, was it not in 2021, stroke 2022, the issue of the flood.
Yes.
We had that flood in 2012.
Yes.
The lockdown they have been talking about up to now, they have not done anything about it because the flood came and it has gone. They are waiting for another flood to come again. Then they will talk about cushioning effect. Why not do this before now? Do you know what it takes for the federal government to procure those things? The same money they were using for the subsidy. When the time comes for the procurement of those things, they will still be complaining that those money is supposed to be used for recurrent expenditure. It was supposed to be used for capital expenditures. People will still complain. So they are supposed to do that before the removal of the subsidy. So it is a welcome development, but how quick is it going to be?
A bit belated.
Yes. So I think it's coming a little bit late.
Okay.
It's not ought not to be.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Taking a step back on
Yes.
the matter we're talking about, which is the removal of the petrol subsidy. Now let's go back. Let's look at the reason why, or rather the benefits of this removal, because people on the street right now do not understand how the removal of this fuel subsidy will actually be beneficial to them, especially now that they are undergoing stress, you know, due to the price hike in transportation and in cost of food. So my question to you is this: what is the benefit of removing this fuel subsidy right now?
No, if you look at it very ordinarily, there are a lot of benefit attached to it. Because the money being used in subsidizing this fuel was really high. And at the end of the day, the federal government was left with nothing. To even, we'll talk about recurrent expenditures, we talk about capital expenditures, they were not even having enough money. They started borrowing. And you are paying this money to these so-called marauders, let me use that word. You are paying this money to those that are importing fuels. And at the end of the day, you will not have enough money for other projects. So the money will come back to the economy again to revive and revamp the economy. That is the way it's supposed to be. But in Nigeria here, will that be possible? If you remove the subsidy and the money now is coming back to the purse of the federal government, will the money be used to alleviate the sufferings of the people? Will it be used
so
to
that's
help the economy?
Primary concerns of Nigeria.
The primary concern of the government, not Nigerians, is for the money to be used in rebuilding the economy. But will it be used? That is the question. If not, the money, you know the amount they were using every month in paying for subsidy, it was pretty high. Yeah. So if they remove it and you bring the money back to the economy, it's going to help the economy. But will they use it for the economy? Will they use it to revamp the economy? That is the question. Will they not share the money among themselves? That is another question. If not, ordinarily the thing, it was laudable.
Okay, now, still talking about questions. Another question which I would rather want to bring, and I want us to go back to the issue of palliatives, because that's even the reason we're having this discourse. Yeah. And undermining is also important, that we see the gains in even the removal of the subsidy in the first place. But my question now is, would even the Mass Transit Board do any good? Because I'm really curious. If you take your mind back to 2012, when former President Goodluck Jonathan also increased the pump price of petrol to almost 87 naira, he also thought towards that line and introduced 1,600 buses to help deal with the issue of the problem that would be associated with the hike in fares and all of that. But many would say that was little or nothing. And undermining, he even motivated other governors as of then to also key in on that, his drive to get mass transit buses. So it's like we're taking ourselves back to what we had in 2012. That did not work. So is that even any palliative to think about?
It's a palliative. That's the only thing they can do for now. We'll talk about transportation because it's affecting every facet of the economy. So if they do that, the state governments should key into that project also, not to let the federation, they shouldn't leave it to the federal government alone. The state government should include in their own budget on how they can procure most of these buses, because that is the primary purpose. If you talk about helping in palliative, are you going to be sharing for people to use, for drivers to use? It's not possible. You cannot gather Okada people or the keke rider, which is the tricycle rider, and say, I want to be giving you free fuel. That is another form of subsidy, so they are not going to do that. The only thing they can do for now is to procure most of those vehicles. So it will help.
And put other bus riders out of market.
No, you cannot. Why will you put them out of the market?
Because when you have mass transit buses and persons feeling more cheaper source of moving from one place to other, would you not put the keke riders in a very precarious situation?
You see, one thing about this system, sir, I don't know if the experts that are there working with them, or I don't even know what they are doing. If in the question right now, according to Kyari yesterday, they say more investors, they will allow more investors into the oil industry. Now, if there are more investors and they are coming in with much of these things, the price will go down. The price will come down. It's not a question of just pushing people out of the market because out of other transport organization out of the market. No, it will help because we're talking about cushioning the effect right now, and that is the only way they can do it.
Okay, we're still talking about cushioning the effects and palliatives to help us in this situation. Governor Alex Oti of Abia State recently suspended all transport levies imposed on commercial drivers in the state. Do you see this as a right step in the right direction?
Those levies...
Yeah, we're talking about still palliatives.
Yes, palliatives.
It all depends. The transport, this we talk about the internally generated revenues. You cannot just say the government, when it comes to the transport ministry or the transport sector, they remove whatever that concerns bringing in money. No. There are some, what we locally call, no. What he's doing, there are some levies that were being levied on those transporters that were supposed not to be. Those were the ones he removed. But the issue of ticketing and other things, they are still there. Like,
Abia State?
As a means of generating revenue.
Yes, how are you going to generate revenue if you remove all those? How are you going to maintain the park?
So you don't see that happening here
in
and
Delta
solving
State.
the problem.
No, it will not solve the problem. The only thing you tell me that most of those levies that are being collected by the roadside, you can scrap all those things. But in terms of
additional levies,
yes, all those
rather than
additional
that
levies, you can scrap those ones. But in terms of generating revenue, if you scrap those ones from it, then are you bringing the state down, or you are helping the state? So you cannot totally scrap the issue of.
Okay, now if you feel that is not a wise move to make, for you, what other kind of palliatives should the government think towards in helping to deal with the issue? Because transportation is everything.
Yes.
When it goes up, definitely everything follows. And we're not just even talking about just moving persons, but we're also talking about moving goods, food produce, all of that, all inclusive in transportation, and which is everyone's fear, especially as the fuel price has been.
You see, I love that question. Sometimes we leave everything for the federal government to take care of. If the state government, for instance, now the Delta State government, I know they are the second in terms of borrowing, indebtedness, they are the second in the after Lagos State.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean Delta State is poor.
Yeah.
They are still generating money.
Yeah.
They are still receiving their percentage from the oil.
Yeah.
So if there is any way they can say, okay, well, now federal government have already removed their own subsidy, we want to introduce our own, the state government can help.
In now paying subsidy.
Yes, of course, pay some amount of subsidy. If
Would that not drive them into more debt?
No, it will not drive them into more debt. Now, when they are borrowing during the period of the election, were they not borrowing? What were they borrowing those money for? They say capital project. Which of the capital projects are you seeing today? They were borrowing those money to help in terms of elections. So that's the other borrow.
That's a strong allegation.
It's not an allegation. Listen to me. Excuse me. If you even borrow to ameliorate the sufferings of the people, is there anything wrong with it?
So you feel the state government should go where the federal government is running away from?
No, we are talking about they are our immediate leaders here. Okay. We have the federal government in the center there. Yeah. But here we have them at the state government. Okay. They shouldn't shy away from it. They cannot shy away from it. If the federal government decide to remove subsidy, the state government can come in and say, okay, we want to cushion the effect of this, this one is particular to Delta State. This one is particular to Rivers State. This one is particular to Lagos State. You remember when they stopped the payment of local government revenue? Yes. In Lagos State. Because Tinubu created additional
additional local
government. Not 22 local government
development
areas in Lagos State. What did the man do? The money that was coming in, he just spread it across. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, he spread it across. No, now Delta State, they're supposed to know that the federal government is planning to remove subsidy. They were supposed to have plan ahead. In Nigeria, we don't always have plans ahead. It's after when it happens, they will not talk about cushioning the effect. Why not plan it before now? You mean they don't have any plan for us as Deltans? That when you remove this subsidy, it's going to affect us. Let me tell you what happened about 2 days ago. A lady cooked a pot of soup in her house, locked the door, and she left. When she returned in the evening, the pot of soup was gone. It's as bad as that. Everything was gone. They broke the door. They saw when she was cooking, preparing the meal. Something is taking place here. Immediately she left the house. They broke into the house and they carried the pot of soup.
But that will not cushion the effect of. Okay,
what I'm telling you that it's as bad as that.
Okay.
This fuel subsidy removal is really affecting us here in Delta State. Because in Delta State here, we believe that if you look at the working class, those that are not even employed by the government, they are much. Everybody is everybody is hustling. When you wake up in the morning, you hustle for what to eat, and we must go through the transportation means. So the thing is high on us here. It's not like Lagos State.
So let's still remain with what other measures, apart from your proposed plan of subsidy by the state government, what other measures can also we think towards? Because that's the bane of our discussion. We'll open up the lines. Let's look at palliative, because it's quite certain that the federal government is not having a rethink of returning back to the way it is. It's quite certain the subsidy has gone forever, so they said. So what should be that measure? A quick one that will help Deltans and also Nigerians to deal with it. So let's try and see if we get some other measures from you.
Now, for instance, if you look at the power sector, it's still very poor in Delta State here. Yeah. Because a lot of people now, they depend on this PMS to power their houses, not only on transportation. It's affecting every facet. A man who is having a barbering shop, without power, it cannot operate. Somebody who is powering his house in one way or the other, without electricity, how can it thrive? So if the government can call for a meeting, stakeholders meeting, you come, let's come together, let us discuss what is wrong with the power sector, especially in Delta State here. What is going on? Like we have a gas power station here. Is it because they have shortage of gas? Don't they have gas to power the station? Why is there shortage in the electricity supply? Like in the station now, you are using your personal generator to generate light here. If the NEPA light is on and businesses are moving, people will not 100% depend on this fuel to survive daily. So we shouldn't look at only the transportation aspect of it. The transport. We should look at our daily life, domestic life.
Which is also highly dependent.
Yes, depending on the fuel also. So if they can do something about that, I think that is another way of cushioning the effect of this subsidy removal.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, at this point, I'm kind of pressured to ask a question that's going on in the minds of many Nigerians this morning about the $800 million World Bank subsidy removal palliative. It seems as though it's just disappearing. We're not hearing much about it anymore. What's going on with that money?
There is no amount of money you are going to declare today that you will see from the government. They call those things classified information. They won't tell you.
But we're aware. I mean, federal government came out and told us about the $800 million palliative fund loan from the World Bank.
Yes.
Now, the question now is this: where is that money?
That's what I'm still telling you. You won't see the money.
But because they made mention of sending it to the poorest of poor and vulnerable Nigerians. But even as of last count, we also learned that Serap has even told the World Bank not to release that money. But anyway, as much as we reason it out, would that not have even helped out to deal with these issues?
Yeah, there were different suggestions on how the money could be used. They were talking about refineries. They were talking about several. But it seems as though, like I'm saying, we suddenly do not have an idea
of where
or any other information on this money. So
okay, may I ask, the Nigerian refineries, as the Kaduna refinery, the Warri refinery, and the Port Harcourt refinery, what does it take to even revive those refineries? If you could remember, sir, before now they were talking about the turnaround maintenance that was gulping millions of dollars. Before we came to the issue of a subsidy, that thing was on and off for several years. They could not fix those refineries. So what is going on? They say only Dangote build the refinery, but the federal government could not fix our refineries. So most of the times you ask this question in Nigeria, are we really being governed or ruled? Because if you are governing people, you are an administrator, you have to be accountable. You give account to those that you are governing. Now you are talking about this $800 million. Where is the money today now? What are you going to ask? We don't even have an idea of where the money is. And at the end of the day, they will tell you that the money has been spent on this or on that. Okay, the money is because it's a loan, which we are going to pay. So why is the money now?
From the World Bank. But even if you say that those monies should be pumped into the refineries, Malik Kyari said yesterday that whether the Dangote refinery comes on stream, the Port Harcourt refinery comes on stream, the Kaduna and the Warri, the prices of petrol would never return to its former price. So irrespective of whether we now have that $800 million in dealing with the repairs of the refineries, he has said it, and it's now a certain ground that the petrol price will not return to 195 that it used to be, but rather close to 500. That's a basic from the NNPC. And
because it was that assertion was based on international price. That it was based on international price. If you are refining your own locally, I don't believe that one is going to have effect on us.
Well, so he said.
Yes. For now, it was just based on the international price, the correct international price. That is what he was referring to. That was the reason I was telling you when I started that. He equally said that as much people will come into the mainstream, investors will come in, the price will go down on its own.
But before we go, I really want to really ask. They've talked a great deal about successive government and their push to increase this. But as much as we've talked about successive government has also had an approach of dealing with this, especially with Labour, who are going to have a very emergency meeting today, Friday, to decide what they will do at the end of it. And one thing that all successive government have always been doing is at the end, they increase the salaries of these workers. And at the end, we hear nothing after that. Are we likely going to see it?
Yes, of course. You know, the labor now have already been decentralized. This is not the labor we used to know, the labor we're having today, just a shadow of itself. Somebody was saying something. Well, he's not actually calling for violence. Let me just digress a little bit. When you are now holding somebody accountable, somebody who calls himself a leader, somebody who is not a servant leader, he just needed power and he can do whatever he likes and go. And you are not asking the person how he's going about the whole thing. Then he will continue with that process. The successive one have done his own part, another one have come in, and he's going to continue on that plane. Now, you talk about labor now, negotiating with the government. What are they negotiating? For their own benefit. Increase our salary because now the fuel price have gone up. You are not bringing it down. You have already removed the fuel subsidy. Now, I think a liter of fuel is like about 600 naira now.
Yeah, depending.
It's even climbing to 700 now. They will not tell you, okay, well, let's use this percentage now. It's 700 naira now. If our minimum wage, let it be this. They will not even put it into consideration. It's not supposed to be so. We have the private sector, so it's not only the labor sector. The government sector that we have in this country that is occupying Nigeria. We have the private sector. So if you cry for your own increment in your salary, it's just a waste of time because the money you are going to increase is the same. If they are paying you 30,000 naira in a month, or they were paying you 30,000 naira, they now increase it to 60,000 naira. Is it not the same thing? The value of 30,000 naira as at 2018 compared to 100,000 naira now. 30,000 naira was more valuable in 2018 compared to 100,000 naira. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. So if they even increase your salary, it doesn't even have any effect. It's not cushioning the effect. So if you want to stand on the ground that, look, just the way one of the callers said, let's go back to the status quo. It's just, you pronounce it with your mouth. You can still use your mouth to say that, look, before we remove the subsidy entirely, because to me, it has not been removed though. Let me tell you, just pronounce it. Now, the pronouncement, now you can retract it that, no, what is going to be there now, the effect on Nigeria is too much. Let us wait a bit. In the next 6 months, let us have a roundtable discussion on how we are going to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. We are going to provide for vehicles. We are going to provide for this. Electricity will be worked on. And at the end of the day, Nigerians will not even complain if you remove it because we know that it has been a scam. But you are removing it now. You remove it. Most of these things that are supposed to serve as shock absorbers, they are not there. So Nigerians are not groaning. They are groaning. They are in pains. And we are complaining. You are still telling us, even if Dangote refinery is in its own full capacity, the fuel price will remain. Why not say that the crude oil we are going to give to Dangote refinery, we are going to in a way slash it, so that when they are having a cheaper price, they supply Nigerians. Because I believe that refinery of Dangote can supply the fuel we are using.
But it will mean they will feel they are losing money on account of giving it cheap to Dangote, and in every way looking at
where are the day? Where are the day? Where are the day of this country? Not those administrators. Where are the real owners of Nigeria? They are just there to administer. If they don't work, when you leave that place, you cannot work. As you are serving in this place today, if you are not meeting up to target, the management will say, my friend, you can take your leave. So why allowing these people to do whatever they like and nobody is questioning them? You talk like the way that caller said, they will send their security apparatus after you so that they can just make a mess of you. It's not supposed to be. It's time for us to be bold enough to speak. It's time for us to ask questions. Now we are talking about, some few days ago on my program, I was talking about the Sopatec and the DC.
That's another large topic.
Excuse me. No, it's not another topic. If in Delta State where we have oil, crude is under our feet. Here we are groaning like those in Zamfara State. Is it not the wet in Zamfara State that somebody is mining? And here in Delta State we are suffering and we have petroleum under our feet? No,
but anyway, it's another large discussion, like I said.
Of course,
but time is never a friend, especially when we're having this. But we need to thank you so much, and I'm talking of no other person, but our comrade Francis Onuafe.
Okay, I think it's high
time for coming put and also helping to help us look at this, undermining your direction for a palliative. It's okay, it's quite there, but I wonder if, and it's only if, it will be looked into and also form like a basics of really helping out Nigeria. But thank you so much for coming. And Kemi, it has really been a full circle, and time for us to step out and leave. But anyways,
our advice is this weekend to go try and get our bicycles.
Okay.
And be prepared for the following week.
What's that your parable?
Kemi can still ride the bicycle, I wonder. But anyways,
the parable for the day.
Yeah.
Okay. We will go to the police station outside.
Well, anyways, we'll just leave her with her newfound fame of parables and all of that. God willing, we'll see you next week. Bye for now.